Hey guys, Matt here, and this is my review of Skyfall. Skyfall is directed by Sam Mendes, who previously directed one of my favorite movies, Road to Perdition, and the movie stars Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, Javier Bardem, with Ray Fiennes and Ben Whishaw. Now, going into this movie, I just wanted it to be better than Quantum of Solace. I didn't like that movie so much that I was like, alright, when the next James Bond movie comes out, I'm not going to rush out to see it just yet. And I had all these expectations for not only James Bond in this movie, but also the franchise in general. So, after seeing Skyfall, let me tell you guys, this movie was incredible. Not only did it meet all my expectations, it surpassed them. Alright, where to start? Well, let me start with the acting. Daniel Craig as James Bond, great. This is probably my favorite James Bond movie with him in it. Judi Dench as M, going into it, I was like, okay, she's played the female version of M too long, she's just a crabby old lady at this point. No, her role was vital to this movie, and she did a good job. This was the first real movie in which Judi Dench as M made me go, wow, she fits in. She fits in perfectly. And then you have Javier Bardem as the touchy villain, I guess you could say. Good job on his part. After No Country for Old Men, and then going to this movie, I was like, wow, he's such a good actor. Ray Fiennes is also in the movie as a co-starring role. Good job. His character was important in this movie as well. Good job on his part. Same thing with Ben Whishaw as the new Q. He's a little young for my taste. I was expecting him to be an older guy, but still, he had the old Q whip and sense of humor and chemistry with James Bond, so that worked. Now, the biggest thrill for me in this movie was that it's the 50th anniversary of James Bond, so I was really, really happy to see all the nods and tributes they paid to the previous movies, including, the villain that kind of resembled Christopher Walken in A View to a Kill. You have the scene where James Bond is, in a shooting contest with the villain, like in Moonraker. You've got personal aspects to James Bond in a tribute to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. You've got two villains fighting in a pit with a killer animal inside it in tribute to You Only Live Twice. There were so many things in this movie that I, as a hardcore James Bond fan, was like, yes, it's great. So glad they put that in there. So, you have the gadgets. You have things the characters say. And you have, most importantly of all, the music. Now, one of the things that really irked me about Quantum of Solace was that they put the classic James Bond walking gun barrel shooting scene at the end before the scrolling credits, and that really upset me. Now they do the same thing here, but that didn't really bother me at all, and I'll tell you why a little later in this video. Now, as far as the camera work and the scenery, it was really good in this movie. Sam Mendes, it seemed like he was like, okay, so where's James Bond going? Okay, we need to show a faraway shot of the boat or the building that he's going to or whatnot, as well as the scenery and the landscape, because it was like you knew where James Bond was going because it was a faraway shot of something beautiful and something that really worked with the camera. This movie was so good. I was probably the only one in my theater either clapping or going, yes, yes, at certain parts, because there's so many little James Bond gems in this movie. Like, this scene with James Bond and M in, let me call it, the car. There were so many neat little jabs and jokes, but, also tributes in this movie that I was half expecting Desmond Llewellyn to be CGI'd in this movie somewhere. Oh, so good. Such a fun experience. Now, as I said, I am a James Bond fan. Sorry, I'm a huge James Bond fan, but if you're not a fan of the franchise or haven't seen any of the other movies, don't worry, because you don't have to. There were a lot of elements in this movie that kind of hinted at or told you where Bond came from. They mentioned that, they refer to him as an old man, so he's been doing it for a while. They mentioned what happened to his parents, that he's an orphan. They mentioned enough things to kind of get you up to speed to enjoy this movie, because if you didn't see it as a James Bond fan, you just saw it as a really good spy action movie. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the James Bond walking and shooting the gun barrels, they didn't upset me too much because I was just so excited when the end of this movie came. Now, only small gripe I had was at the beginning of the movie, they do have the classic, opening sequence with the song and whatnot, and the imagery and everything in the opening was good because, you know, it helped lay the groundwork for the storyline. It showed you locations and elements and things that tied into the plot of the movie. But as far as the song goes, Adele is a good singer, but I really couldn't tell you anything about the song besides she uses the word Skyfall. So yeah, the James Bond walking, you know, scene would have helped there at the beginning, but it was okay because the last 5 minutes of this movie made me feel the same way I did while watching the last 5-10 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises, where leaving the theater I had goosebumps because I was like, yes, that's the way you end a movie, especially a James Bond movie. So because this movie was a great, great James Bond movie, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite, but guys, it's right up there. Because of that, because the music was awesome, the sets, the scenery, the acting, it had everything you'd want from a James Bond movie. Skyfall is getting a 5 out of 5. Now it's funny because I've only given that rating to 4 movies this year, including this one, and honestly guys, Skyfall's at the top of that short list. So whether you're a fan of Daniel Craig, James Bond, or good old action movies, check out Skyfall. I definitely recommend it. So, in honor of James Bond, until next time guys. Now, when I was younger, I was such a James Bond fan that every time they would do the the anniversary thing of James Bond, every November they would show all the James Bond movies on TV and stuff. My dad and I would talk on the phone all the time about James Bond movies. You know, he would quiz me and I would ask questions, back and forth. And so, I'm going to do something for you guys, something I used to do all the time, and I'm pretty surprised I can still do it. One, because it's fun, and two, because it's the 50th anniversary of James Bond, so why not? And that is listing off all the James Bond movies to you in order, and just to show you I'm not cheating, not holding anything, and there's not looking at anything. So, here we go. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun, Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, Living Daylights, License to Kill, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day, Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and now Skyfall. So in honor of 50 years, James Bond, thank you. Thank you.